Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blues Talk. We're again, John, Dave, myself, we're going to look back over Leinster's very poor performance, but a victory nonetheless against Treviso. Also the other Pro 12 matches, and look forward to our final game of the season against Edinburgh and all the other final games of the year. So boys, we got the win. We secured European football for the next season, but it was a very, very poor performance.
It was a hard watch. It was a very hard watch.
I'm trying to think, and I'm trying not to be hyperbolic about it.
But it was a load of hyperbolics.
It was a load of hyperbolics. It was ultrabolics. No, I'm trying to think if I ever seen a worse Leinster game performance, even games we've lost.
Well, you probably name several from this year alone. But
No, I don't think I can. Not from this year. No, I couldn't name a worse Leinster performance. I think that was the worst of the year.
it was up there, but it had a few contenders, shall we say?
Yeah. I mean, I played in games that finished like when I was playing minis for Coolmine. I remember playing a game that finished 0-0. Mm-hmm. And I played in games 3-0s, 6-3s, but I've never played in a game as boring as that.
It was. I couldn't force myself to watch it back. In fact, it was. I got to 10 minutes and went, I think I've seen most of it now. Seen all the good bits.
We looked disinterested. Like, looking from the outside in, it did look as though the team had sort of given up. I mean, we hear all the messages coming out. No, Connor hasn't lost the changing room. Fellas are,
maybe he hasn't, but
well, maybe he hasn't, but it didn't. Looking at the body language of the team, it certainly didn't appear that way. It does look like that they don't give a fiddler's about this.
I think there was an element of that. Once it became apparent to them that they weren't going to lose.
But Dave, it was 7-0.
It never became apparent.
Once it became apparent to them that they weren't going to lose in their minds, it was. I mean, the game was in the mix right up until it went to 10-0. I mean, so that's 76 minutes, 77 minutes. But I think that they lost interest in it. I think that there was an air of on holidays about them. I mean, guys. I mean, okay, the World Cup's coming up, so guys are getting their surgeries in early, and they're off, and they're not around, and the awards ball was the next day, and all this kind of stuff, right? But it's not an excuse. I'm not saying that those are in no way valid excuses. But I'm trying to find some reason why these guys switched off.
Well, they haven't started. They didn't switch off for the first time yesterday or last Friday.
But it's not like wouldn't be unusual for us this season to have got a lead and then to have blown it. And it's 7-0. In those terrible conditions, all it takes for is one drop pass, a guy to kick it 40 metres and land on it in the over the try line.
Exactly, and you could see them going into scrums and lineouts, and they weren't really that arsed. They're all looking in different directions. There was no stage where people were clapping each other on the back and going, "Right, come on, get into it."
But look at the team that we put out. Like,
is that a lack of leadership?
I don't know.
Certainly,
can you? I'm struggling to find. Like, if you look at the team that played, like there was 9 of the starting team played in this year's Six Nations. There was 5 further internationals on the bench. A guy who won the NRL and played in the State of Origin. All these guys are. It's not like we're picking a bunch of lads who are just out of school and giving them a bit of experience in the Pro 12. It's not like we're going as under Checa, bringing 11 fellas who are wet behind the ears with a couple of internationals.
13 lads plus Birch and Kill.
Exactly. and bring them over to Dragons or somewhere. Like this team wouldn't be too far off a European Champions Cup.
Haven't we been saying that? I mean, even the teams that lost to the Dragons and the teams that lost to back to back to the Dragons, and teams during the Six Nations on the Six Nations off weekends. So there's some bloody good teams when you consider that we've got. The NIQs that we have, who are okay, they're not Rocky Elson, but they're bloody good players, and all the guys who we had in the off weekends, like I think it was the Scarlets we played in one of the off weekends, very good teams out, but there's the top 2 inches are missing a few percent.
I know, but like what's even more galling is we were playing Treviso. We weren't playing Toulon or Wasps or a significantly like an Ulster in the Pro 12 like this.
Isn't that something we tend to do though? Play down to the level of the team or up to the level of the team we're playing against.
We played a team that had won 3 matches this season. 2 of those being.
There's an element of you look at those players, and I don't mean this in the Munster pride, passion, bollocks kind of way. I mean they look soulless.
Mm-hmm.
There's an element of that team for whatever reason, I don't know why, that looks, it's almost like, to use the old the fucking conspiracy theory type thing, walk-ins, like the guys who were in there have left, and all that's left behind are the bodies, and something else is controlling them, because they're not, they don't look like, I mean, Jamie Heaslip, who plays for Ireland, doesn't look like Jamie Heaslip, who plays for Leinster. And the thing is, I'd accept that they were kind of slacking off at the end of the season if it wasn't for the fact that Jamie Heaslip still wasn't making the same mistakes in the 75th minute as he was making at the beginning. It's not a lack.
I think he was one of the better ones, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not a lack of animation or effort. It's a lack of just knowing what they're doing. It's very hard to explain, because it's very hard to explain how a team can look like it's trying without trying. That's what it looks like sometimes. It's very complicated to try and explain what I'm seeing out there. I'm seeing a team that's trying for. I mean, they were still fighting, like literally in some cases, with 75 minutes gone, but they weren't actually doing anything.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Maybe after being under Joe Schmidt for so many years with structure, and now they're getting lack of structure. And being left to their own devices. And I mean, I remember O'Driscoll saying that when O'Connor came in first, that he's not that type of coach that's going to give you all that structure. He's much more free flowing, or much more putting the emphasis on the player rather than the structure. Maybe the team, that was obviously just the wrong thing for our team at that time.
Well,
maybe we have a bunch of players who just need to be told how to play rugby on a very detailed basis.
Well, Cheka and Schmidt, and we've still got Schmidt for Ireland.
Yeah, are real process guys. Yeah,
fanatics, and they're trying to control every minute of the match.
It wasn't always like that. I mean, you remember? I know it was 9 years ago, but it was played some sensational rugby in that 06 season.
Yeah, but
doesn't mean that you can't throw the ball around. I mean,
he did change radically. Yeah. I mean, and he brought in guys who changed that environment. He brought in Mike Brewer, he brought in Alan Gaffney, he brought in Kurt McQuilkin, who are real kind of control guys as well, and that's when things started to change, when those guys came in.
Sure, we were juggling fire under Joe Schmidt. We were playing rugby of the gods. It's not, structure doesn't mean that you can't have flair. It just means that you know where you are.
When you're told to have flair.
Look at the All Blacks. They quite often say it about the All Blacks. They'll have some structure. It looks like nothing, but they'll have a little thing like when the fullback takes a kick, they have a little pattern that they run out to a certain wing to see what the opposition are going to do, and if they fall into a certain place, they'll run this pattern. If they, it looks loose, but it's actually not loose at all. They know exactly what they're doing, minute by minute.
It must be. I think it might
that's
be
something we don't seem to have.
I think it might be a national characteristic. I mean, you look at the most successful international coach we've had in terms of games won over an extended period was Eddie O'Sullivan, and he was an extreme, very process driven. Declan Kidney was less so. And in the end, it tailed off for him. Yeah. In a similar way that it may have done for Matt O'Connor. Joe Schmidt, very process driven. So maybe the Irish rugby Rugbyplayerus Hibernicus, needs to be told what to. Maybe he needs discipline, constant discipline. I don't know.
Well, anyway, at least we can get the ruler out next week and draw 2 big red lines under this season, and it'll be done.
Yeah,
it's okay. We're on BBC Alba.
Well,
so brush up your Scots Gaelic.
Well, we did score 1 try.
Yay!
And I'm sort of glad that Heaslip got it, because he, as you said, Dave, like he was definitely one of the better players on the pitch.
He was nearly in there actually.
What makes this try actually is watch Dave Kearney. He really works his arse off to get up and chase that kick down. Look at him. He's not. I mean, and then he gets a good tackle position as well. Gets a good wrap on him. Ball gets knocked on there, and we get the scrum.
Yeah.
But that's all from Dave Kearney's hard work.
When I saw Heaslip got very, very close, he was on the line, and they gave a penalty against him. Leighton Hodges gave a penalty against him just before, about 5 minutes earlier than this, and I thought, oh, here we go again. We're going to get up to the 5 metre line every time and not make it over. Thankfully, Heaslip was awake here, and he just hopped up off this and made it happen.
Saw the opportunity.
Yeah.
Watch the scrum half. Watch the scrum half. Scrum half takes a step. Yeah.
And he dummied him. He bought that dummy very easily, that scrum half, didn't he?
But his weight was all on his other foot because he was. I mean, our scrum half was taking him out. He wanted to go that way anyway.
But sadly, we had to wait another 68 minutes or something to score.
To add another thrilling score to it.
Actually, there was a little bit of a fillip when Darcy came on, and it looked like they were trying for a few minutes, and then it kind of.
Well, what Darcy does is at least we start running straight.
Yeah.
That's what Darcy always brings. Straight running, ball, winning, making meters in contact. You know, driving the opposition defensive line back. But
he didn't look like a very.
Too little, too late.
Went to the line out afterwards to see him being interviewed, and he didn't look very happy.
No, he
rarely
does.
Well,
himself and Jennings
look a lot happier than that.
Himself and Jennings will be two of the crankier guys when things aren't actually singing.
Yeah, well, it was interesting to see Jennings, or to read Jennings' article or his piece by Peter O'Reilly in the Sunday Times, where he kind of had aimed his arrows at both the internationals and non-internationals.
Yeah, he wasn't like this was. People say, oh, he took on all comers, but it wasn't scattergun. I mean, he made specific, for want of a better phrase, accusations. It's not an accurate one, but it's the best one I can think of, against a number of areas on every side of the divide. And it's very hard to argue with him. It's like I said. I mean,
it is.
He says the international players didn't show selflessness when coming back into the team. On the other hand, he said the non-internationals didn't exactly put the work in. And we've often spoken on this show in the past about how when the internationals are away, the squad players and the academy players step up and take ownership, and they've taken 15 out of 16 points and 19 out of 20 points. And this year we didn't. And when we did take those points, that put pressure on the returning internationals to step up and take the ownership back. And that wasn't there this year. So there was this kind of infinite loop of feedback loop of non-happening feedback loop.
But like I just looked at 3 teams over the course of our losses in 2 Dragons match and the Scarlets match, and there was 5 guys that played in all 3 matches. But some of them are seasoned internationals. You know, there's Dave Kearney. There's then there's other lads like Teo played in all 3. Goppert played in all 3 matches.
Goppert played in every match.
Yeah, I guess he did.
Was.
But then you've the younger guys. You know, like I know Dominic Ryan's been there for a few seasons, but he's still a relatively young guy. And Conan
had a big
as
gap
well.
from injury. Really.
But like those 2 guys played as well. So you've got a smattering of experienced internationals and also
bubbling under guys.
That should be the guy,
reliable squad players,
like Conan, and it's unfair to sort of just pick out one guy, but there's it would be a good example of someone who's coming through the academy who should be jumping up and down and saying, I'm going to be the next Sean O'Brien, I'm going to be the next Jamie Heaslip. Whereas he didn't really excel this season. Like he's kind of.
He seemed to, after a really promising start,
he didn't kick on. You know,
he didn't seem to kick on. But and I wouldn't say that to his face. No, definitely not. But
he did reach a level and then plateaued.
For whatever reason.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting point that Jennings makes in that you have Issa Nasewa and Johnny Sexton coming back next season. 2 guys with the work ethic of whoever, absolute workaholics who know what it takes and who can put in what it takes. I'd say Nasewa would still be able. I know he's been off for 2 years, but I'd say he's you can't change your mental attitude.
But another point that he brought up as well was that people were coming in and walking around with the 3 stars on their crest.
That's exactly the point I'm making.
And they didn't necessarily put the hard yards in themselves to earn it.
They didn't exactly, and they didn't realise, like they didn't, for example, play in the match in Bordeaux against Clermont where it was all hands on deck and that pain they had to take to get over the line there. The guys you're talking about in the the Dominic Ryans, the Jack Conans, they weren't at that.
They weren't there, man.
They weren't there, man.
You don't know. You weren't there.
You don't know, man. So you can talk about that all day, and I wasn't there either, and none of us were there, and none of us know what it took, but it took extreme pain, and you had to be prepared to go to the wall. And when that has been kind of handed to you, plus when you're used to, I was talking earlier about people slapping each other in the back and going, "Come on, let's go." When you've got Leo Cullen there doing that, and you've got Shane Jennings there doing that, and all of those guys, Brian O'Driscoll. It's not really, all you've got to do is respond. But when you've all of a sudden got to become the guy who does all that,
and leading from the front,
and walks into a fire and goes, right lads, follow me, I'm going through this brick wall. if you haven't experienced
the thing is the likes of Cullen and O'Driscoll, and maybe Sexton or whatever, when they pat a guy in the back, it's half pat in the back and it's half push.
Yeah.
You know, and in that push, there's an inherent threat from guys who know what has to be done, and if you're not going to do it, you can F off.
Yeah.
The question is it just pats in the back now? You know, so we don't know. I mean, the thing is, as much as people want to believe that it's the case, there is absolutely no sign whatsoever of any dissent from top to bottom in Leinster rugby. None whatsoever.
No, there's nobody hanging the coach out, right? And Shane Jennings would have been ideally positioned because he's not going into a coaching position. He's not going into, you know, he's not going into punditry as far as I know. Maybe he'll do a bit of it, but I don't think that's going to be his main gig. So he doesn't really have to. If he had a chip on his shoulder, he could launch into it.
And particularly that he didn't.
And he didn't.
He didn't get. He didn't get to play in the last game in the RDS, where he might have been a little bit peeved about that.
Yeah.
You know, not really getting the. You know, very few players are going to get the Brian
Well,
O'Driscoll send off, but he would have been nice. I'm sure he wanted to go out.
It would have been nice, but the fact it kind of shows how much people will seize on any opportunity, right? This was a must-win game. We had to win that match, right? Yeah. So people were actually suggesting we leave our world-class British and Irish line open side flanker on the bench to say goodbye to a lad who's just back from injury.
Yeah.
I mean, it just shows. I mean, it would have been nice. It would have been nice. But the thing about Jennings is Jennings wouldn't tolerate that because Jennings is the ultimate professional. He'd want the best 15 on the pitch to win the game.
Well, I would have thought you could put Jennings on the bench and
possibly,
have your world-class open side flanker starting, but you know, it wasn't to be or whatever.
There's no sentiment in pro sport, like, and you know, it's not like he's talking out for Marys that they could do that in a J3 match and say goodbye. But at the same time, I'm sure he would have liked to have played.
Oh, he would have, but he could have had the opportunity to open.
With hindsight, maybe he wouldn't.
He could have had the opportunity to open both barrels on the coach, and he didn't, and nobody has.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of people with friends of friends of friends who are saying stuff, but nobody's actually saying anything.
No, there's nobody that I have heard in any way close to Leinster rugby that is firing any guns at Matt O'Connor. So you have to think that while we're not absolving him for any blame in how Leinster played this season, but you'd have to think that he's not, you know, it's certainly not all him.
No.
Well, I'm glad that they're kind of taking some of the blame as well, because that blame has to be apportioned amongst the coaching staff, the internationals, and the non.
There's a little bit there for everyone.
Yeah, I find that to be actually quite encouraging to a certain extent, because, like I said before, if success is many failures, so does failure. Many
fathers.
What did I say? Success is many failures.
Yeah.
If success is many fathers, so does failure.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were all pleased to laud the players, the coaches, the player-led environment, etc. When we were winning, and it's good to see the players have come out as they were as willing as they were to take the glory when they were winning. They're equally willing to take the blame when things aren't going well, and that's a good thing. And I'm glad to see that. It shows that there's an honesty there. You know, there's a professionalism there, and that's something to be.
I think
that's something to be encouraged by.
There's a lot of disgruntled Leinster fans out there who'd say, if success has many fathers, so has Matt O'Connor.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's not as many as they like to think there are.
Anyway.
Well, like, we just saw that like another one of the Leinster guys has gone in under the knife. Keane Healy had an operation on his neck. They probably fast forwarded that operation.
He can't even paint at the moment.
He must be injured. So.
God love him.
But you know, like, he's
fucking
obviously
pitches, mate.
He's obviously been taken out because there was no need. You know, like, we had two matches that really were insignificant.
And it's probably our strongest area in the squad. Anyway.
And to go and have that operation now rather than in 2 weeks or 3 weeks time. To make sure that he's guaranteed to get back for the World Cup.
Bushism.
Absolutely. You know, they're paying the bills. The RFU are paying the bills, and sometimes we might begrudge them certain things. We can't really complain about them sending players for operations a bit early, because hey, it's not as if we've got a semi-final to worry about, or or anything.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be nice to be fifth rather than sixth, which is the only thing we've got to worry about now. But you know, how nice would it be? It doesn't take precedence over a World Cup.
It's very strange watching matches with, and they don't really mean that much. And then you turn on the TV the next day on Saturday and you see well, the standard, I know the weather conditions were a lot better, but the standard of the play, and you could see that there was enthusiasm on both sides. And, you know, the...
too much in some cases.
Maybe so, yeah, we'll talk about Henderson. But like, you know, it's such a change over the last 5 or 6 years where we are fighting for every match we've played at this time of the year for the last 5 years has either been a semi-final or a final. Now we're kind of in a situation where we've really, next week's the end of it, and there's 2 more weeks of this.
It's a vaguely familiar feeling for us from back in the old days, but it hasn't been how it hasn't been how it has been in a long time. So it's unusual in that regard.
I sat in the RDS on a Friday night, got lashed on, and was freezing cold. About 15 hours later, I was sitting at another Dublin 4 venue watching a rugby match in beautiful sunshine, where the rugby was a whole lot better, and you know, it was a great spectacle and a great game at a lower level for sure. But you know, 2 teams that really wanted to play, as opposed to the 2 on Friday night, and it was exactly the same with Munster and Ulster. It was a great game. It was a great derby match.
Both games, and
Ulster, the heart they had to come back into it.
Both games on Saturday were 2 teams who wanted to win, and maybe Friday night was 2 teams who were scared to lose.
Yeah, probably, but also there was something to play for.
Yeah,
you know, like it's hard.
It's a big thing.
I guess it's hard to. I guess for someone like Jamie Heaslip, who, you know, a few weeks ago was making a last minute try-saving tackle.
Yeah,
in front of 65,000 people in Murrayfield.
From the sublime to the ridiculous.
And then he's playing in a miserable...
I mean, the game ends up, and even the way the game finished with a red card and 2 yellows, all 3 cards were deserved, by the way. I mean, the ref got the call right in all 3. But it's just the ridiculousness of it in a way. And then, you know, it's just 78 minutes gone, 7 and we take a kick.
There was some doubt as to the... Strauss, I never watched it back to find out, but Strauss cleared somebody out of the ruck, and Sean O'Brien got sent off. Or did Sean O'Brien get sent off for punching?
What happened? Sean O'Brien was sent off. Sean O'Brien cleared a guy out of the ruck completely legally, with the judo spin, with that judo roll to take a guy out. Then when the guy went to get up, Sean O'Brien held him down. So the guy punched Sean O'Brien in the stomach. Sean O'Brien hit him back, and the 2 of them traded slaps. Like literally.
Was that what he was sent off for?
Yeah, the 2 of them.
Okay.
The 2 of them were trading slaps, literally at the referee's feet. I mean, it was certain yellow card.
Because while that was going on, Rickard Strauss
he got the hot water in the showers first, though. Maybe that's what he wanted.
Well, maybe that's true.
He did an Iain Henderson on you. He went flying in with his head.
Well, I didn't because I was looking to see what the Sean O'Brien thing was about, so I didn't really pay much attention to that. And of course, the Darcy one was pretty clear cut. I mean, it was almost dictionary definition. Feet above hips,
him into the ground,
driven into the ground, landed on the head and neck. I mean, it wasn't malicious or anything like that, but it was certainly dictionary definition.
Textbook,
Well,
so the game and Leinster's home season ended on a kind of an almost fitting note of farce, really.
But to go back to Munster and Ulster, cracking game. Munster nearly did enough to stay on top. They played really well. They were probably the better team on the day. Well, for a lot of the game, for certainly the middle part of the game, Ulster were came back well in the first half, and to go in, I think at the end of the game and at the end of the first half, they had their 2 big tries. To come back the way they did, and the pass, I think it was McCluskey made a break, and then Jackson's pass with his take and give was just phenomenal.
That's what
Ulster put in small parcel in the corner, and you know, it was really good, and to do that in overtime.
Also, just had that little bit of extra class. That's what it was. The class of the player like McCluskey, you know, guys like Cave and Payne, Jackson. They are slightly more classy than their
But you know, I think it's refreshing to see a team play rugby like that in Ireland, because it seems that it's successful. You know, you can play like Ireland play. Now, I think it's like watching paint dry. It's great that we're winning and everything, but it's as far as I'm concerned, and like yourselves and probably people who watch this are passionate about rugby. But for a person who you're trying to win, to take them away from watching football or watching GAA, you ain't going to win them over watching. The only way you'll win them over is by success, rather than the style that we play, that Ireland play.
Ireland have to win playing the way we play. because that's the only way it attracts.
But if you look at Munster play a similar enough game to what Ireland play, but they just probably don't execute it as well. But Murray kicks an awful lot from the base of the scrum or the base of the ruck as well. Whereas if you look at Ulster, they actually want to attack and play rugby, and it proves that you can play and win or be successful playing a more expansive game.
Well, no, it hasn't yet.
We'll
see,
that's the problem. Ulster
haven't won a trophy since...
Not yet, but they've...
2005.
No, I appreciate that. But Leinster won an awful lot of trophies by playing expansive rugby not so long ago. However, what Ulster are proving now is that you're putting 16,000 or 18,000 bums on seats. You're watching, it's sexy rugby to watch. There's a buzz about the place, and also they're actually in the sharp end of the season where they're competing.
There were minutes from not being minutes from being guaranteed.
What Jason's saying is right, because if you have, a team like Ulster with that extra bit of quality, they always had the ability to get round Munster, even short-handed. They had that little bit of class. Good players, they didn't do anything stupid. They didn't throw skip passes.
Tommy Bowes' try was a perfect example, and particularly Henderson's offload.
For that was just.
We're always told play the percentage. Don't take the unnecessary risk. Set up the ruck. Blah blah blah. The fact that he was able to get that pass away, it immediately created. It's like the try in Lansdowne, the cross kick. The guy could have gone to ground and set it up, but he didn't. He tried to get the offload away, and they scored a try in the corner.
Well, the Lansdowne one was they actually had a penalty, so he was kicked when he kicked that crossfield kick. I think they had a penalty coming.
They did, yeah. That was the thing. But what it was yes, the pass was lovely, but the most important thing was an execution of a 2-on-1. That was the key thing, and it was done lovely. Henderson, for all that everyone's talking about him, I'd say Joe Schmidt will be more down on him than up on him after the match, because if he had
mixing the good and
if
the
he
bad.
had if he did 3 things in the match, 2 of them were bad. That's the thing. That's the thing to remember.
No, he didn't. He did another
a couple of sublime things.
There was one piece where Keith Earls went for a kicked through ball that Henderson. If you look for where he ran from,
he turned a huge pace. Yeah.
But unbelievable. But he didn't even try to follow the ball. He ran diagonally for the corner, and he knew where that ball was going to go rather than chasing the ball.
Plus Earls
is a fast guy. Men. And he put so much pressure on him that he denied Earls the opportunity. So I'd say that he actually did more good than bad in that game. He got sin bin.
He skipped gaily round the side of a couple of rucks to give away a few penalties on occasion without a thought entering his head. Which is that you see the thing about Joe Schmidt.
The kind of player he is, though.
Joe Schmidt is. We said it before. He's a process guy, and if you don't he believes if you get the process right, the results will follow.
Yeah.
Right. If there's guys out there not paying any attention to the process. So that's where
but he's right, because it's a team game.
Yeah. So that's Henderson's work on. His work on is to stop, being stupid.
Yeah.
But his footballing ability is extraordinary. I don't think people are still talking about is he a lock? Is he a 6? I think he's a 6.
Is the answer.
Well, yes. But if I were starting him, at the start of a match when I had everyone available and I was going to start Henderson, I would start him at 6. If I was going to use him on the bench, then you can use him at 5. You can use him at 6. But I think his starting position is 6.
He works strategically in a number of places. You can have him at 6 and have 3, like we used to, they used to put Nathan Hines at 6.
3 jumpers in the air.
And you've got 3 jumpers, you've got 3 guys for mauls, you've got a lot of power on the pitch. Or you can go the other way and have him, in the middle of a match you can move him up into the second row and have somebody come on in the back row. You can go the opposite way, start him in the second row, move him back. You can
maybe that's the model for Iain Henderson. On the bench, you can have is Nathan Hines. Nathan Hines was the guy, fantastic footballer, but was a disciplinary issue waiting to happen for a long time. But then he can start to control himself.
Way beyond that.
Yeah.
But Henderson has the power to be a second row. He's obviously got the height and the line out ability to be a second row, but he's got the pace
and the hands.
See,
I think that adds so much extra to if you're a second row and you've got that aerobic fitness, you're just going to be you're giving your team, like we used to play with O'Driscoll and Darcy as auxiliary flankers. This is giving you a guy who's actually closer to the action as an auxiliary flanker.
If he's further from the ground, though.
That's true. That is true. But
in fact, if you put one of them on top of the other, but no, it's a valid point. I mean, you can make an argument for playing him almost in any position from four back.
He's a great guy to have.
We said it 3 years ago when he came onto the scene that this guy is sensational. It's a pity Leinster didn't snap him up if they had a chance.
The only thing he's missing is that little bit of thinking
it's
at
funny,
certain times.
I heard him been interviewed on, I think it was
he's
off
a bit
the
of a
ball.
nutty professor.
Like he
very
was
smart guy.
He was going to be an actuary.
That's right.
Well, you look at the current incumbent in the number 6 jersey. He was a guy who was a bit of a wild, loose cannon when he started out, and he's still a young player himself. Is Peter O'Mahony, and he controlled his impulses. He's very disciplined from playing for Ireland.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. Who is Iain Henderson's target for Ireland? Is it Devin Toner? Is it Paul O'Connell when he retires, or is it Peter O'Mahony? I mean, he said on that interview he said he wanted to be a 6.
Yeah, it's true. But he's a very lucky fella, been able to either play in either position, in the front, in the second row or the back row. Yeah. But he also got a red card. I thought a little bit harsh.
But this flying in off the feet with not being bound to a ruck.
There was another red card. Well, there was another should have been a red card this weekend with a bye. So
didn't see that. But that's starting to come into the game now, where they're looking at that and they're starting to give, diving over a ruck off your feet is going to start. It's going to become the new spear tackle.
I know, the nanny state is taking over again.
It's like I say. It's like I always say. If you make the ref ask the question, then you've got at best a 50-50 chance. Mm-hmm. Because he's either going to say yes or no. But
his question was, did he make head-to-head contact? And he did. But I still think it's harsh. But
well, you see, the thing is, you're looking at it from the point of view that it wasn't intentional, and it wasn't.
No question, it wasn't intentional.
O'Mahony moved back out of his way, just as without seeing. Like neither of them could see what the other one was going to do, and he just ended up hitting him in the head. But again, if you're going to dive over a ruck off your feet, I think that's really the issue. It is a dangerous thing. Like there's lots of dangerous cleanouts in the game that could paralyze guys, so they have to, the bigger, the more powerful. It was grand in the old days when fellas weren't fit enough to be able to do these things, or they weren't.
I mean, let's face it, in the old days, if one of us tried to spring over a ruck, we
wouldn't make it.
We wouldn't make it over our own side, let alone the opposite. No, but I mean, the thing is, whether it was a red card or not, he gave the ref an opportunity.
Yeah,
and that's my problem with guys like him, and I call it the David Corkery factor. Guys who are good footballers but are more interested in the bosh than the ball. And Henderson is that's the crossroads he's at. Is he going to become a ball player or a bosher? I think he should go down the ball player route. Yeah. He could be Ireland's Nathan Hines. Nathan Hines is one of the finest second rows I've ever seen.
But then, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. You have to be critical of someone like Sean O'Brien.
Oh yeah, he does the same thing.
Two yellow cards in the last 3 games. So
he's got to. These guys.
Sometimes
you have to use
aggression.
That muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one guy who is using it, we mentioned him earlier, was Jackson. I thought again he had another great game, and he's growing into that 10 position.
He kicked that conversion
without breaking a sweat. That was something else.
That was unbelievable. Because there was so much pressure on that. That was the game. In fact, that was Ulster's season. Really, they missed that conversion, and they're guaranteed 4th place, and they're going away to whoever's top of the league. When the way it is now, they've some chance of a home. Yeah. Even not a big chance, but they've got it.
They play Glasgow,
Yeah, but I think the Ospreys and one of the Ospreys or Munster would have to lose for them to get a home semi as well. So, big ask.
When the try was scored, and obviously I saw when it was scored, my thought, the automatic thought was, geez, that's a tough kick for Pienaar.
Yeah.
And then I saw, oh no, it's Jackson.
They got the bottle to give it to Jackson. And Pienaar was a bit off colour. I don't think he's.
But giving it to Jackson, and the way he just nailed it without even. I mean, the Ulster fans call him the Ginger Prince, and he looked princely. He really did look superb. I mean, that's the best I've seen him play.
Yeah, and he's definitely leapfrogged now. Madigan and Keatley has been Ireland's number 2.
Well, I always say, I mean, Schmidt said 2 seasons ago that Jackson was his number 2 out half, and I think
if Sexton slips in the shower the day before the France game in the World Cup, Paddy Jackson, I guarantee you, will start.
Yeah,
but he may not end up on the bench.
But he looks a completely different animal than he did when he played for Ireland under Kearney.
Everyone does.
But I mean, he's grown up though. He's grown up. He's got the experience. Like even think back to that particular season, we played them in the semi-final, outside the final in Twickenham, and he looked like a fish out of water in that game, and he doesn't look like the same player 3 years later.
Because they backed him, and
even if you look at the environment he's coming into,
mistakes.
If you look at the environment he's coming into the international team, actually, there's really good parallels with the environment he's with at Ulster, because himself and he has Pienaar inside him. He's a great scrum half, like a brilliant scrum half. And then he'll come into the international team, and if he is picked, if he does start, he'll have Murray inside him, who's the best scrum half in the world as far as I'm concerned. So I think it's everything's coming up Jackson at the moment. Now, obviously, Sexton's still the starter, but would you worry if he's playing like that? If that's the standard for Paddy Jackson now, would you ever worry about him starting an international match?
No, but I think what we might see is a rival for Sexton, which is only going to push him, which is great. Rather than, we talked about teams plateauing in the past, or players plateauing, and because they've got no one to push them, and obviously.
I think also something that's good for Ireland is, I think that was Jared Payne's best ever game in the number 13 jersey. He looked like an outside centre.
He's properly coming on right at that. And, because they brought in Ludic, he's going to get more time there, and also Cave moving to 12 is going to, it's going to guarantee him more time there. Might give Cave a bit of an avenue into international rugby, in that he can cover 12 and 13 now, which not too many can do.
The other lad that came on,
Henderson can.
McCluskey.
McCluskey's very good. Yeah.
Ulster are churning out these guys. I don't know how.
We seem to churn out back rowers, and they're bringing through great.
You look at the last couple of years, they've had Marshall, Olding, and McComish, and obviously they had Cave and
McComish
and poor Evan Spence before him, but they've all those guys.
McCluskey, you mean?
What did I say? McComish. No, he said McComish. I said McCluskey.
Okay.
McComish is the back row.
Who's on first?
That's right.
Yeah. But so they're churning out these guys, and when you think that there's still players to come into that first run team, that Ulster team. Yeah. Munster's slightly different. What Munster are doing is they're playing at least like a team again.
Oh yeah.
They don't have the quality. Yeah, they don't have the quality that Ulster had. They probably don't have the quality that Leinster have.
If the number 8 could kick it, he probably would. Yeah, like that's their team. That's their tactics.
Well, it suits.
Yeah, well, their tactics are to get into the opposition 22 and give it to Stander. That's the game plan.
It suits them. He's very down on Stander. I don't know. I'm warming to him big time. He gives it all. I mean, heard you saying before he's a bit of a lazy player and he's only there for the show he carries and stuff. But I think he's putting in the work about the field as well. He's no Jamie Heaslip, but he's damn good. But Munster, the way Munster are playing, it suits them. It's kind of back to basics approach. The problem they're going to have is, and this is why they're signing fellas like Francis Saili, is that they come up against Claremont, Toulon. They won't have a prayer with that game plan, because they can see it coming from 100 miles, and they've got the physicality to deal with them in spades. But they can certainly bully around nearly every team in the Pro 12, including us.
It's a simple game plan.
They bloody did bully us twice this year.
It's a simple game plan, and it works because everybody's on the same page, everybody's doing the same thing, everybody knows what they have to do. So, and it almost worked against Ulster. What Ulster had was that little, like I said, that little bit of class that Munster just didn't have. But there's guys in that Munster team who are playing some good rugby. I mean, Keith Earl's coming back and looking
looking
sharp,
great,
and looking fit.
Great.
That's a big plus.
Let's not forget, Munster were away in Ravenhill, Kingspan Stadium, which is a place they haven't as good a record as we have up there.
But they've always played weekend teams.
That's true. They have played weekend teams quite a lot, but it has a bit more of a fear factor for them, and just the fact of being away in a different country, dare we say, in a different
the money's
state.
different.
The money's different. The phone boxes are different. It's so different. But I think they really, and they almost won it. They were a hair's breadth or a few minutes away from winning the thing, which at the business end of the season is pretty impressive.
Yeah, they were winning. If you look at the last couple of minutes of the first half, they conceded 10 points, and then the last minute of the second half, they conceded a try and conversion. So if the game had been only 39 minutes, you would have been laughing. But
it's interesting to note that the areas that Munster, I mean, their signings seem to be good, because the areas where Munster might be a bit, like you were saying, deficient, like like you were saying about bringing in the likes of Saili, that's where they are weak, or not weak, but that's where they're not strong.
Yeah, but if you go back 10 years ago, that was the same thing. Where But it was the.
You could say the same with us in second rows or hookers or
I guess
whatever,
you can,
scrum halves or
but
whatever.
that's been, you know, we're talking about Ulster producing lots of centres, Leinster producing at the moment lots of props or back rows, but few second rows, few scrum halves. For some reason, there's a glitch in the system that Munster just seem to can't produce any midfielders, and if they do, they kind of decide, oh, we'll bring a winger in there and try and play him because he can catch a ball. But they just don't seem to be able to.
It's the passing it on bit that they
can't. But like, they've signed. You know, they've got Blendell is coming back from injury, and then they've got
Siley.
There you go.
Yeah, like if they played M12 and 13 with outside Keithley, that'd be pretty spectacular. They've still got what's his name, the big lad that plays 12 at the moment, who went to Castleknock College.
Dennis Hurley.
They've still got Dennis Hurley, who is well capable of doing a job. Different type of,
and in fairness to Hurley,
different type of player.
Hurley has reinvented himself as a very efficient inside centre.
He certainly has. He's more in the James Downey mould than than anybody in the second 5'8" or you know. But good player, you know, not top end of Europe or anything, but you know, certainly good honest player and very good enough to win a Pro 12.
But like there's been a rake of them over the last years that they've had to import in, whether it was De Villiers, Maffey, or... It's like
I've been saying it for years. What do Munster do? They sign centres. I mean, it's like us and scrum halves and whatever. It's Munster have if they need a forward. If Munster were desperate for a good tight head prop, they'd sign a centre. But that's I mean, they have
and they are desperate for a good tight.
But they have this obsession with it. I mean, you go to a number. You got Maffey, Topoki, Halstead. Tutti Poo Poo,
even James Downey, you know.
James Downey. I mean, but for some reason they've just got this obsession. They just do.
Well, it's just that they're not producing anyone themselves. I mean, that's fair enough. People, that's why you. That's
why we have this NIQ system. It's the same reason why Leinster will probably have to, at some stage, will have to go out and sign, you know, another lock if or whatever, you know, because there's areas that we're not producing in. Scrum half, obviously, famously, we haven't had an Irish scrum half native in a long time.
Well, anyway, boys, thanks very much, and thanks very much for watching. Cheers.